Let's start with quarterback, Dan. The top 12 quarterbacks in my 2025 Dynasty rankings. We've even got graphics today. It's going to be fantastic. Number 1 is Josh Allen. Number 2 is Lamar Jackson. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. Number 4, Joe Burrow. 5, Jalen Hurts. 6, Jayden Daniels. Number 7, Caleb Williams. 8, Justin Herbert. 9, Jordan Love. 10, Brock Purdy. 11, Kyler Murray. And 12, you said his name earlier in the show, Drake May. Dan, what's the first thing that stands out to you? Just jumps off the page at you.
First thing that jumps out to me is shout out Debo, because I love the graphic and I love that we got graphics. So that's just a quick shout out. But the first thing that stands out to me is, you know how I am, Heath. I am a terrible person. No, I'm not a terrible person. I just have moments and lapses of bad human. And that's going to come out now when I say, when we were on the show last year and you said, who's going to jump into my top 12 that's not there? I said Justin Herbert. No one bought into it. No one believed me. They thought the fit was bad with Harbaugh. I said it's the opposite. I said he doesn't need volume. He just needs efficiency. And that's what he's done. And so Justin Herbert stands out first to me. And I think he's going to continue to be there. And then obviously the second thing I see on this page, my boy, Drake May. I'm so happy he made your top 12, so I don't have to use him as an answer to a follow-up question.
I will say, I guess you can victory lap being right about me moving Justin Herbert into the top 12, but I think he was QB 18 this season. So I'm not sure you can victory lap what Justin Herbert actually did in terms of fantasy football production.
And that's why I love having you here, Heath, because you can bring me back down. And I deserve to be knocked back down. I'm just
okay. So Drake May, you said it. He made it into the top 12, so he's not the answer to this question. Who's the best quarterback that I left out?
So this one is interesting. I'm going with a 30-year-old, and I am actually surprised to not see him on this list. It's Jared Goff. I love the infrastructure there with Detroit. They may lose Ben Johnson. I tend to think that's fine given where they're at and given where Jared Goff is at. Specifically, that offensive line is just so dominant and so reinforced with players. And then what we talked about earlier, Heath, Jameson Williams, close to cracking the top 12 at the wide receiver for both of us. So now as he continues to get better and look more and more like that player we saw on his tape at Alabama, he's got weapons there. Laporta, Jameson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Gibbs. I mean, it's phenomenal with that O-line. So just 30 years old, quarterbacks play late into their career. And quite frankly, he's playing the best football of his career right now, Jared Goff. So, and he's going to get all those dome games. So it's Goff for me.
Goff is my QB 16, actually. Okay. The guy who just missed the cut, the guy who was QB 13 for me, was the guy who changed your mind the most this year. It was Bo Nix. He was actually my QB 13, but I think Goff's a good answer. And if you were a contender next year, he probably should be a top 12 quarterback. It's a good time to remind people that I'm trying to blend with these rankings for contenders and rankings for rebuilders. I'd much rather have Jared Goff on a contending roster than a couple of the names that you see in the top 12 here. And then finally, we'll just talk about the rookies. Does Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward crack this list by this time next year?
I would love to answer this question in 2-3 months from now when I actually watch tape on these guys. I've only seen broadcast games, but broadcast can give you an idea for sure of what they bring to the table. And with that said in mind, we're looking at Tankathon right now. I looked at that before this question. Cleveland in the mix. I don't know if they'll have the cap space to go for a quarterback. Tennessee seems like a lock, so that's not exactly the fit I love, but it's not terrible. It's really not terrible, actually, with Calvin Ridley and an improving offensive line. So let's say one of them goes to Tennessee. That's the best bet possibly. I'm going to still answer no. Skill set wise, I don't really see it with either of those two.
I don't think everything I'm seeing is that these quarterbacks would have been at best QB4 in last year's class.
Yes.
Which means they're behind the top 3 that made my top 12. And I'm assuming that Drake May is either going to get an offensive tackle or a number 1 wide receiver in the draft this year. Well, if he could get both, that would be fantastic. Of course, they might just take Travis Hunter and play him at corner and